Hilchah Shcheinim Perek Shleisha Asar. So we learned the dinim of Bar Metzra. The basic din is that if two people own fields that are next to each other, Reuven and Shimon both own fields which are next to each other, and Shimon goes ahead and sells this field to Levi, so Reuven could go ahead and tell Levi, listen, that this field for me is more important than for you. Whereas for me, it's an advantage of having this field because it's next to my field. And for you, you could get any field. So therefore, he could go ahead and give Levi the money that Levi paid for the field. And now Reuven will take the field, and Levi will go ahead and buy another field if he wants to. So basically, Reuven pays Levi the money that Levi paid for the field, and then Reuven goes ahead and takes the field. And we look at Levi, the Rambam said before, we look at Levi as if he was a shliach of Reuven, as if he was an agent of Reuven to go ahead and buy the field. Now, Kamuvan, that this din only applies if Levi bought the field. Mashengen, if Levi received this field as a gift, so the whole idea, Reuven has no tainah. I mean, Levi didn't go and buy the field. Mele saying, I want to buy the field. Levi received the field as a gift. So Mele, the whole din of Bar Metzra doesn't apply. That's the beginning of this Perek. Perek Shleish Asar. Hanoisen matana, someone gives away a matana, is ain't but din ben ha-metzra. There's no din of ben metzra. So knows the neighbor can't come along to the recipient of the matana and say that I want to take the field. It wasn't a sale. I got it as a present. Now, however, hoye kose b'shtar matana shachrayis matana zu alanesen. Normally, when a person gives a present, he doesn't accept on himself achrayis of this matana. It's a present. If somewhere or another this karka will be taken away from the recipient of the matana, from the makabel matana, so the pashtus, the noisen is not achroi. When does a person accept upon himself achrayis? When he's a moicher. If a person sells a piece of karka, so then he accepts achrayis. Now over here we have a shtar matana. This mikabel has a shtar matana, but on the other end it says that the noisen accepted upon himself achrayis. That if this matana will be taken away from the mikabel, so he will insure it. He will pay him back. So that's an indication that it's not really a matana. It's really a mecher. That's why it was Makabel Achrayas. Why did he write Matan if it was a Mecher? The answer was because he was trying to avoid the rights of the Bar Metzra. The Bar Metzra has rights to insist that the karka should be sold to him, and Memela, the recipient has no right to buy it. He has to be given back to the Bar Metzra. In order to avoid this din of Bar Metzra, they wrote that it was a Matana. But on the other end, since it was really a Mechira, so therefore he wrote Achrayas. That's this din. Now, hoye kose b'shtar matana shachrayis matana zu alanesen, that the person that's giving the gift is taking achrayis on the gift, on the matana, is yeshba dinam b'ameser. Why? Because hail v'yeshba achrayis, since it's achrayis, obviously mechiri, obviously a normal giver of matana doesn't accept achrayis. The only reason why they wrote it as a matana, in order to avoid, to circumvent the rights of the Bala Metzra. The common noisely, so lepel how much now the Bar Metzra comes to the person, he has a shtar matana. It says that he was makabel achrayis in matana, but it doesn't say how much he was makabel achrayis. So kamu noisely, how much does the Bar Metzra have to give to the person that has the shtar matana, which we're saying is really a mechira? Mashi shava, whatever the karka is worth, whatever the karka is worth on the regular market. Now Omar al-Lekech, the Lekech is tiny kenu. You're right. You're right. It was written on matana because we tried to avoid you, and the truth is that it was really a mecher. V'haramasinu umechiri, and lepel. It doesn't say in the shtar how much I paid for it, but I'm telling you, bekach v'kach knisio. I bought it for more. I bought it for this and this amount. So then is nishba b'nekitas chayfetz v'netel kidin ashluchim. Then he goes ahead and he's nishba b'nekitas chayfetz, and he takes the money that he's claiming, that he paid for the karka b'tur shliach of the moicher. In other words, we're saying that when a person goes ahead and buys the karka, skili, he was the shliach of the moicher, of the Bar Metzra rather. I'm sorry, he was the shliach of the Bar Metzra. So he goes ahead and is telling the Bar Metzra, which he was his shliach, how much money he spent for him, and memela how much money he has to give to him for him. Now v'yiro li shetzarich litin dam shein ruim. Whereas he can't taina money, which is normally you give him, if there's no taina, you give him the money that it's worth, the regular money, the market value. Mashenkin over here, he's taining, this is the amount he spent, so you have to give him money which is within begeder, or yeser miato, a little more than the market value. Aval malmal shavim me'ab masayim konis, he's claiming that he actually bought this piece of karka for 200, is eininam, and he's not believed. So again, normally a matana, there's no din bar metzra. If there's a matana that has achrayis, we assume that it's not a matana, it's a mechira, and therefore there is a din bar metzra. How much do you have to give the Mekabel Matana, the person that has the Shtar Matana, the amount that it's worth. Now, what happens if this person that has the Shtar Matana is Moida, that really was a Mecher and they only did the Matana in order to avoid the Bar Metzra, and he's claiming that he gave a certain amount of money, so even though it's a little bit more than the amount of money that it's really worth, nevertheless, since he's claiming that he's spent that money, so therefore he's a Nishba V'Neitel. Masha'enkein, that's only if it's within reason. Masha'enkein, if he spent money like double of what it's worth, so then we don't believe him. Now, however, that's talking about if it doesn't say in the shtar that that's the amount of money that he spent, or that's the amount of money that he's being achroi for. However, it says in shtar matana, not stam that I was mekabel achrayis. It says clearly, v'kibalti olai achrayis matana zu shem teitzim miyodi etnli masayim. And he said clearly that he's going to give him 200 if Lepeli loses his field. So which basically is an indication that that's how much he paid for it. Is Nesli Ben Ametzer Masayim. So Ben Ametzer now is to give him Taka 200. Even though the karka is only worth mana, but Lepel, since he has a shtar that the other person is taking achrayis for 200, which means basically that he paid 200 for it. So Memela, so the Bar Metzra has to pay this person which has a shtar matana 200. Halacha dal if he has a regular shtar mechira, and in shtar mechira also it says that he paid more than it's normally worth, but since he has a shtar, and that's what it says in the shtar mechira, and that's memela what the mecher is achrayah for, so therefore he has to pay him, he has to reimburse him that money in order to get the field. Halacha dalit hichlif chotzer b'chotzer. In other words, there was a chotzer, and that chotzer was vices also a din of bar metzra, which there's two chatzeres next to each other, which can join as one chotzer. And now this person gave him another chotzer. In other words, the buyer didn't pay money to the seller. He gave him a chotzer for the chotzer that he got. It was an exchange of two chatzeres. So again, you have two chatzeres which are neighboring to each other. Reuven has one chotzer, Shimon has the other chotzer. Now Shimon went ahead and he sold the chotzer to Levi. So Levi now has Shimon's chotzer, but Levi gave Shimon another chotzer, a chotzer in a different place. So it was an exchange of chatzeres. Hichlif chotzer b'chotzer. So then, ein badin ben lametzer, because he could say, listen, I wasn't interested in selling it stamazim for money. I was interested in selling it to replace this chotzer for another chotzer. That's not something you could have done. You couldn't have provided for me. So therefore, that's why I sold it to this person. Now, hichlif chotzer b'behemei b'metaltalin. If he exchanged the chotzer for a behema or metalton, rein the meis a behema, the meis metalton, we evaluate. It's not again that a behema or metalton could always be bought. So memela, you go ahead and you evaluate, you assess how much was that behema or those metalton worth, and v'neislim ben ametzah. So it's as if he would have gotten money for it, just like if he would have gotten money for it. So then the bar metzra, the person that was the neighbor, goes ahead and reimburses him for the money, and he takes the karka. So here also, if he took items for it, not a chotzer. A chotzer is not something which you could exchange, but he took items for it, so then he pays him the value of those items. Umisalke. In other words, the buyer, this person that was lekeach, will tell the bar metzra that you want to give me, you want to reimburse me. I want you to reimburse me the items that I gave the seller. I gave the seller an item, a karka, a metaltalin, either metaltalin or a behema. So I want you to reimburse me with those items, and only then will you take the karka? The answer is no. Since you gave him items, so we look at the value of those items, and the value of those items, that's what the bar metzra has to reimburse. So if you paid for it with another chotzer, so he can't really give him that. So therefore, there's no taina. Masha'engen, if he gave him items, so all he has to do is give him the value of the items as if he would have given him money. This all is only a rama. In other words, he's trying to trick, to say, listen, you have to give me those items in order to get back the field. All he has to do is give him back the value of those items, and he gets back the field. Halacha hey. Now again, we have a Reuven and a Shimon, they're neighbors, and Shimon wants to sell his field. Now what Shimon did was, Shimon owns a large field, and he goes and he sells in the middle of Shimon's field. He sells a piece of karka. He sells a piece of karka to Levi. So now Levi owns something in the middle of Shimon's field. Now, you can't have tinus to that. In other words, it's not a neighboring field to Reuven. Shimon is neighboring to Reuven, and on the other end, in the middle of Shimon's field, there's another piece of karka, and that's the field that Shimon sold to Levi. Now, once Levi had that piece in the middle, so now Levi basically is a neighbor of Shimon as well, just like Reuven is a neighbor of Shimon, Levi is a neighbor of Shimon. So now Shimon went ahead and he sold Shimon's field to Levi. So the question is, he's steining that Levi is also a neighbor. So the question is, if this whole thing was only in order to trick, whereas really Shimon wanted to sell the whole field to Levi. He wanted to sell the whole field to Levi. But on the other end, he can't sell it to Levi because Reuven is a bar mitzvah of Shimon. So therefore, if Levi would have bought the entire field of Shimon, so Reuven would have been Masalikim. So what Shimon did was he sold him a piece of his field that was inside his field. And Memela, and that Reuven couldn't have been Masalik because that wasn't a bar mitzvah of Reuven. And now that Levi became a bar mitzvah, so now Shimon sold him the field. So the question is, we have to here establish whether or not this was a real sale when he sold him the first sale, or no, the whole purpose of the first sale was only to make the second sale. So it depends. If the first sale was a piece of karka, which was similar to all the karka, arum and arum, so then we assume that the whole thing was haram. It was only in order to get to avoid the problem of bar mitzvah. Masha'enkin, if that piece of karka that Shimon sold to Levi, which was inside his karka, was taka a different type of karka than the rest of the field of Shimon, so Mela over there, you could say it was a proper sale. There was a certain type of karka that Shimon was willing to get rid of and sell to Levi. Levi wanted to buy that piece of karka. So that was a real sale. That was a real sale, that was the intent. And now that Levi became also a neighbor of Shimon, so now Levi has a right to buy Shimon's field. That's this din. Allah Machali karka ma'ad be'emtza sedeh. We sold him a little bit of karka in the middle of his field. V'achar kach machali karka b'tzad eis hasodah shebe'emtza. Now we sold him the other part of the karka, which Reuven is a neighbor with. So Zroyan, im oisi ha'ma'at shemachali tchila, he idias eziburis, legabi zeis ha'karka shemachali b'achrein. It's not the same type of karka. The first piece of karka that he sold him was one type of karka. And the second piece of karka that he sold him was another type of karka. So then is Zachal Lekech. So the buyer is Zecha. Ve'im ben HaMetzer Yachal L'Salkei. So the ben HaMetzer came in L'Salkei. Shari U'atzmi ben Metzer. Because right now, he's also a neighbor. And we say that piece that he was originally koine was a true sale because it was a different type of karka. You're saying if it was a true sale, so why did today he sold him this karka and tomorrow he sold him this karka? Why didn't he sell him the two types of karka, the two karka together? The answer is originally he only wanted to sell him this type of karka. That was one type of a sale, and then he sold him another piece of karka, which was a different type of karka, which was another sale. However, so in other words, the two pieces of karka are equally the same type of karka. So first he sold him one piece of karka, which wasn't bordering with Reuven's field, and then now he sold him the other piece of karka, which is bordering with Reuven's field. So the pastus advarim is that Be'emes, he was interested in selling him the whole piece of karka milchatchila. They're both the same type of karka. It's Elamai, he knew that he wouldn't be able to because there'll be a din of bar mitzvah. So in order to avoid bar mitzvah, he sold it in two halves. First he sold one piece of karka, then he sold another piece of karka. So that's harama. So in Mela we still maintain the din of bar mitzvah, and Reuven could be masalikim from the whole karka. It's the same type of karka as Arez Amarim. So really basis is harama. No, he can only be masalikim from the soda shekana basef. And the soda shekana betchila, since Sofkol Seif, when he bought it, it wasn't a bar metzra, so he can be masalikim. He can be masalikim from that, even though it was intent of doing the second as well. But lepel, he can't be masalikim. Mashenkin, the second piece of karka, which he's a bar metzra of, and he's tiny, no, you're not a bar metzra. I mean, I'm also a bar metzra. So they say, no, since the only reason you're a bar metzra is only al harama, so that harama dika bar metzra can prevent me from my din of bar metzra. That's the avonas advar. Allah chavov. Hamoicher al t'nai, a person that sells a karka and was al t'nai, ben shehisna meicher, ben shehisna lekech, and lepel the t'nai wasn't yet fulfilled, is ein bala metzra yachal lesalke, until the tnoim are fulfilled and mele becomes the buyers, only then could the bar metzger come along, the neighbor come along and say that no, I want to take it, and I'll give you the money and I'll reimburse you the money that you spent and I'll take it from you. And then only once all the tnoim were fulfilled and the lekeach actually was zeich in the karka, and there would be no reason to assume that he may lose the karka. And only then, so first we have to establish that the buyer actually bought the karka. Once we establish that the buyer bought the karka, so then the neighbor could come ahead and take the karka from the buyer. Halacha zayin, halikeach shabona v'ishbiach. A person bought karka. We're talking about karka which the neighbor will be able to be misalikim, eventually will be misalikim. But the Vaila, he bought the karka and he went ahead and built on the karka, or he was improved the karka. Or there was something on the karka, he went ahead and destroyed something on the karka, or he ruined the karka. Is either way, Ben HaMetzer Misalke, the Bel HaMetzer could still send him away from the karka, in other words, come to reimburse him with the money and send him away from the karka, and he gives him the money that he's deserving. So in other words, if he was mashbiach, he has to add to the money that he gives him for the shvach, and we'll soon learn that he only has to pay him the hitzah, he doesn't have to pay him the dmei shvach, he only has to pay him the amount of money that he spent on the improvement, and if he ruined it, so then he deducts it from the money that he has to reimburse him. And v'harehu b'chol ma'asav k'mei hashliach. So this buyer, the person that bought the karka, and which eventually the karka will be taken away from him, so he has it in like a shliach. Just like a shliach goes ahead and buys karka for someone, and he goes ahead and improves the karka, so he has to be reimbursed for the improvement that he made. If he goes ahead and ruins the karka, so you deduct from him the money that he ruined, in other words, the money that you have to pay him for buying the karka for you, so that you deduct it from the amount of damage that he did. So that's the same idea. Again, someone bought a piece of karka, which eventually the bar metzra sent him away from the karka. But Lepel, in the interim, while he bought the karka, he borrowed money. Now, normally when a person borrows money, so there's a lien on his karka. There's a lien on the karka to the debt. Now the silke ben hametzer, now the ben hametzer, now he lost that karka. That karka was taken away by his neighbor. Is ein bar chev shalei terif miyad ben hametzer. The bal chev shalei can't go ahead and take from. In other words, say, listen, before this lekeach took the karka, before the bar metzger took the karka from the lekeach borrowed money. Mele, there was a lien on the karka. So Mele will look at the bar metzger, keilu, he's a buyer of this lekeach. That's not what happened. Since we say that the lekeach has a din as if he's a shliach of a bar metzger, so now that the bar metzger took it away from the lekeach, it's as if it was never the lekeach's. In other words, we look at the lekeach as if he was a shliach of the bar metzger. So Memela, if the lekeach borrowed money, so he can't. There's no lien on this karka. This karka kilo right now we look at it as if it was never his. That's this din nachamol. This buyer went ahead and borrowed money before the bar metzger sent him away, and then the silke ben hametzer, and then the ben mitzvah sent him away. Is ein bal chev shalei terif miyad ben hametzer. The person that he owes money to can't go ahead and say, listen, this person owed me money, and his property had a lien on them. And Memela, now that you have his property, so therefore I want to take this property. That's it wasn't his property, because right now we look at him as if he was just a shliach for the bar metzra. Zeu ikar b'chol elu adinim. This is the rule. When a person goes ahead and buys a piece of property which is next to someone else's border, with a neighboring karka, which that person has rights to this karka, so who can make shliach lechaveri? He has a din of a shliach, and therefore l'sakin shloche v'lei la'avis, and therefore he only sent him in order to correct things and not to make things bad. So maybe if he goes ahead and ruins things, so he's responsible. He's only a shliach for good, not for bad. If lepel this person that the buyer, which we're calling him a shliach right now, went ahead and was mashbiach the karka, is netleitzah. So he takes whatever he spent on improving the karka, because he had no rights to this karka. So maybe it's like a person that's yed that's einish alei, so he gets only the hitzah that he spent on it if it's kedei hashvach. V'im hifsid, and if he ruined the karka, v'chafar v'haras eachal peiros, if he went ahead and ruined the karka and he ate the peiros, is menakenesim and adam, because it wasn't really his. He had no rights. He didn't have rights to ruin it, and he had no rights to eat the peiros. Now, so the Rambam is putting together the din of this buyer, which eventually the karka was taken away from him by the bar metzra. There's a situation where he ruined the karka, and there's a situation where he ate the fruits. Now, as far as the fruits are concerned, the Rambam firzuis, when do we say that the buyer has to return the fruits that he ate? In other words, when the Bar Mitzvah came along and he brought money, and he says, I want to have this karka because I have rights to this karka. So even before he actually gave him the money, but once he already brought the money and the money is there, he's ready to take it away, so then this buyer has no right to eat the fruit. And if he ate the fruit, so then you have to pay, he has to pay back for that fruit. Masha'ein kain, avul kol ha'peiros she'achal mikedim, is shaleu echad ve'ein mechashver. So as far as the fruits are concerned, so when a buyer goes ahead and buys a piece of karka, and then eventually he's sent off the karka by the bar metzra, so the fruits that he ate before the bar metzra came along and tained that I have a right to take this karka, those fruits are his. Mashenkin, those fruits that he ate after the bar metzra came along, even before the bar metzra actually gave him the money, but once the bar metzra came along and tained it, and he has the money, not stop taining, he has the money to reimburse him. So if he eats any fruits after that, so those fruits really are, he has no right to eat those fruits, and therefore he has to give back the money to the bar metzra. Now, as far as if he ruined it, so there's a difference. The Rambam first put them both together, that the hifsid, the chafar, the haras, eyochal peiros. But as far as ruining is concerned, so even if he ruined it before the bar metzra came along, so also he has to reimburse him. If we're looking at it considering it his, as far as peiros is concerned, until the bar metzra come along with the money, so why don't we look at the same as far as the chafar and the haras? Why don't we say that it was his, and therefore he doesn't owe anything to the bar metzra until the bar metzra, because since he did it before the bar metzra came along? So the other pshat is because since even if it was his, it was only his lizman. And even if it was his lizman, he has no right to ruin it. Whereas if a person, it's his lizman, so he has a right to eat peiros. When a person owns something lizman, he has a right to eat peiros. But on the other end, he doesn't have a right to go ahead and ruin it. Halacha ches. Echad shelokach soda achas mishnayim. You have a field, one field, that belongs to two separate people. Let's say Reuven owns a field. Reuven owns a field. And next to the field, there's another field. There's one long field, but part of that second field is owned by Shimon, and the other part is owned by Levi. Now comes along Yehuda, and Yehuda buys the field, this long field, from Shimon and Levi. Now the question is, Reuven is coming along and says, listen, what you bought from Shimon, I'm not really interested in. But what you bought from Levi, I want to take, that's mine. I'm a bar metzra. I want to exercise my rights of bar metzra to this half of the field which you bought from Levi, but not to the half of the field that you bought from Shimon. But since the buyer bought one field from Shimon and Levi, so therefore the din is that Reuven could either exercise his rights as a bar metzra to take back the entire field, or he doesn't exercise it at all. In other words, since this buyer bought a whole field, he bought a whole field, and the field belonged to Shimon and to Levi, so then Reuven can't exercise his right as bar metzra for half of the field and not for the other half of the field, even though the two half of the fields were bought from two separate people. Now, if he bought it from the same person, he certainly can't. In other words, let's say Reuven and Shimon own the field, and now Levi goes ahead and buys the field from Shimon. So now Reuven has come along and say, half of the field I don't really care about, but the other half I want back. So that's for sure not, because since there was one sale, if there was one sale, so for sure Reuven could either exercise his right as bar metzra for the entire sale, or for not the entire sale, or not at all. Masha'enkin, when you're dealing with two separate people, so it was two separate sales. So then there's no, since we're dealing with one field, so if we're dealing with one field, so therefore either he'll exercise his rights for the entire field, or won't exercise the rights at all, even though the field was bought from two separate people. That's the chiddush of this din. Now, let's say if you would buy bemis two fields, if there would be two fields, you have to establish what's two fields. But if it would be two fields, so the din would be differently. Then then the neighbor could exercise the right for one field, not for the other field. But over here, since it's one field, and even though this one field belonged to two separate people, nevertheless, you either could exercise your right on the entire field or not at all. Halacha ches. Echad shelokach soda achas mishnayim. One person went ahead and bought one field, but from two people. He only wants to be misalikim from half of the field which he bought from one of them. Is eina yochel l'salke. Because either he exercises his right as bar metzra to take away the entire field, he doesn't exercise it at all. That's talking about when you someone bought a field, one field, from two separate people, and now the bar metzra wants to deal with, he only wants to take a half of that field, which he bought from one person. So when Reuven and Shimon were neighbors, and Shimon sold half of his field to one person, and Shimon sold the other half of the field to another person. And now Reuven come along to one of the buyers and say, listen, you bought half of the field, I want to exercise my din of bar metzra. I'm not exercising my din of bar metzra on the other side. That's a different cheshbon. There's nothing to do with you. Since I'm exercising my field on everything you bought, so memela I could exercise my din as bar metzra, even though I'm not exercising it on the other one. So then, he could exercise his din of bar metzra to be masalik both buyers, or he could just push away one of the buyers and not the other buyer, because since each buyer is an independent buyer, so therefore there's nothing to do. The bar metzra could be masalik one or both if he wants. Halacha tes. Ben ha-metzra shebo l'salik es halekeach. He's coming along and says, I have a right to take this field because I'm a neighbor. Now it says over here the lashon mocher lei, but that means you take out the word lei. It doesn't love dafka lei. Mocher, he sold es hasoda sheyesh el hameser, and his whole rights to take this field is because he's a neighbor. But now he's no longer a neighbor. He's no longer a neighbor to this field. So in other words, he had a right really to push away the lekech. But at this point in time, since he lost that right because he sold that field which gave him the right, so even this chusay, so he no longer has the right. In other words, even though he had the right, but now that he sold that field, he lost the right. Halacha yud. Now again, going back to the chkira that we said before, b'negea, what's the gather of the schus of bar metzra? Is it just a din on the lekech? That the lekech is asisa v'yoshev atev. Why are you buying the field? Let the other person buy the field. And mele, when that person wants to buy the field, you have to give him the field, so to speak. It's a din on the lekech. It's a din of asisa v'yoshev atev on the lekech. Or it's be'emes, because there's such a din, so therefore the actual neighbor has a right to the field. He gets kilo a right to the field. He has like a certain kinyan on the field that he has first rights. So if you say that he mamish has a kinyan, so since he had a kinyan to first rights of heir, so ein achinami, right now he already sold that karka, but since he had the kinyan, he had the rights, so there would be a svara, maybe he still retains the rights. So we'll say, even according to that sad, when does he have that kinyan? As long as he has the original karka. But once he loses that karka, so he loses that right as well. Halacha yud. Shliach shemocher, v'harehu bala metzer. So in other words, someone, again, Reuven and Shimon owned fields next to each other. Shimon sold this field to Levi, but the agent for this sale was Reuven. Reuven, which is the bar metzra, which is the neighbor, was the agent that sold the field on behalf of Shimon to Levi. So since Reuven was acting as an agent for Shimon to sell the field for Levi, now Reuven can't come along to Levi and say, listen, I'm the bar metzra. You are the shliach that exercised, that you are the one that sold me this field. So Memela, by you selling me the field for Shimon, you are forfeiting your rights as a bar metzra. Shliach shemocher, v'harei hu bal metzra, and he is the bal metzra. Ain't a misalik as halakech. He can't be misalik halakech. Sharei hu mocher lei. He was the one that was acting for the sale. He was the agent. He was the shliach for the sale. So Mela, he forfeits his right as a bar metzra. Halacha yud aleph. Balchev shel mecher shetoraf hasode miyad bal hametzer. So harei bal hametzer choizer v'teiref min halikeach shesilkei. V'halikeach choizer v'neitel min hamecher. What happened over here was Reuven and Shimon were neighbors. Now Shimon went ahead and sold his field to Levi. So Levi bought this field. Now Reuven, which is the bar metzra, goes ahead and he takes away the field from Levi, and now Reuven has that field. So this is the field that was originally Shimon's. Now originally Levi bought the field, and then Reuven took the field from Levi. Now Shimon owed someone money, and this field, there was a lien of money on this field. So now the balchev of Shimon comes and takes away this field, which is right now by Reuven, which is the bar metzra, which he got from Levi. So the din is, now the question is, Reuven has to be reimbursed. Reuven spent money. Who did Reuven give the money to? Reuven gave the money to Levi, because Levi went ahead and bought the field from Shimon, And now Reuven took the field from Levi. So Lepel, Reuven took the field from Levi, and now the field was taken away because of the chayv of Shimon. So the din is that the Rambam is saying that Reuven goes back to Levi and he says, listen, I took a field away from you, I paid you money for it, I want to be reimbursed for that money that I gave you. And Mela Levi has to reimburse Reuven for that money. And then Levi goes back to Shimon and he says, listen, I bought this field from you, and Lepel, I ended up paying for it, so Memela, so I want to get paid back. I paid you, and I never got reimbursed for it. So Memela, I want to get money back. So the Seder is that Reuven, which is the Bar Metzra, he's the one that you take away the field from him. He goes back to Levi and takes the money from Levi, and then Levi goes back to Shimon. Now the Maisa is, the Ramban argues on this Rambam. The Ramban holds not like that. The Ramban holds that Lepel, since Levi was really only a shliach over here, he was only a shliach over here, so Be'emes, the sale, Shimon is the one that it's his field, and it's Keilu, this Reuven bought it from Shimon, and Levi was only a shliach. So Memela, so really Reuven goes back to Shimon. Reuven doesn't go back to Levi. Because even though Reuven gave Levi the money, but Lepil, what happens is that Reuven has to go back to Shimon, and Shimon will go to Levi. Levi was given the money for it. So Lepil, Shimon could go back to Levi and take the money back for it. But Reuven takes the money from Shimon and not from Levi. But Mashaink and the Rambam is saying not like that. The Rambam is saying since Sofkos Reuven gave Levi the money, so therefore Reuven goes to Levi, and then Levi go back to Shimon. The question is the Havanas Advarim in the Lomdus of Bar Metzra. So the Evan Ozel wants to say that would be totally again in the Lomdus of Bar Metzra. Bar Metzra is a din on the Lekech or the din on the Mecher. Al Polpon. Halacha Yud Beis. Kol Bal Chev Shetorav Bechevei is Yeshel Bal HaMetzel L'Salkei. Because Leyehei Koyach HaTerev Godel Mikech HaLekech. So just like, again, Reuven and Shimon are neighbors. And if Shimon would sell the field to Levi, so then Reuven would be able to take it away from Levi. Because Lepel, Reuven has a right of a Bar Metzra. Now if Shimon would owe Levi money, and Levi took away the field from Shimon, not because he bought it from him, because he was a Balchev, so just like Reuven could take it away from Levi if he bought it from him, so in the same way Reuven can take it away from Levi if Levi took it from Betur Balchev. That's this din. But kol Balchev shetorav b'chevei yeshel bal hametzel l'salke liyekeach haterev godel mikeach halekech. That's din number one. Now ve'im yirtza hanitraf litna domim shahoyu olav b'chevei is tachzul esodeu leilam. Now what happened was, again, Levi took away the karka from Shimon because Shimon owed him money. Now at that point in time, if Shimon would have wanted to take back the karka and given him money for the karka, so that's the din of Shuma Hadar Leilam, so Shimon could give Levi money and take back the karka. Now Lepel, this karka now finds itself by Reuven, because Reuven is the Bar Metzra. So the din is that Shimon not only could give Levi the money, take it away from Levi, but he could also go to Reuven, which Reuven took it away from Levi, and go to Reuven and give him the money that Reuven paid for this karka, and Memela take back the karka. That's this din. Yirsa Nitraf. The Nitraf is Shimon, the one that they took the karka from away originally. Litan Adam Shahayolov Becheve, and to give it to the Bar Metzra, which took away the karka from his Balchev, is also Tachzele Sodeo Le'elam, the karka goes back to him, Kemei She is Barbim Kemi. Halacha Yud Gimel. Cotton Shahaya Ben HaMetzra. A cotton was a Bar Metzra, and Vero Bezer Sheschusule, that in order for him to exercise the din of a Bar Metzra, he's a cotton, he doesn't know how to exercise the din of a Bar Metzra. So if he would have been a godly, he would have been able to be masalik this lekech. But if the bezin saw that it's a schus for the cotton to be able to exercise this din of Bar Metzra, and masalik is a lekech. So you're masalik lekech. Oy yitlechelkim shar bali metzra k'meshayiru. Whereas if there's other bali metzra and they're all coming together to mon from this buyer, and memele each one is going to get a portion. So bezin sees it that it's better, it's advantageous for the cotton to get a portion. So they stand in his stead and they mon a portion for him as well. Halacha Yudal Baal shahoyi ishtei ben hametzra. So you have a person has his wife is a bar metzra to a certain field, and that person went ahead and sold the field. Now the bar metzra has a right to mon that he wants to have that field because he's a bar metzra. But the Baal is not the bar metzra; his wife is the bar metzra. She's the one that owns the field. Is nevertheless the Baal could take the step and say that I'm standing became my wife, and since she's a bar metzra, so Mela, I'm also a bar metzra. I have a din of a bar metzra. Baal shehoise ishte ben hametzar, rizim mesal gazalekech, shekol nichse ishte bershusei, memele v'chol schusha tovi liyod schusule. So notice she owns karka. He doesn't really own the karka. We're talking about Mashal Nichse Malug, which is her karka. He only has the payers from the karka. But lepel, since lepel Nichse ishte is bershusei, and memele kol schusha tovi liyod, he has a right to mon. So therefore, she would have a right as a bar metzra to be able to mon the din of bar metzra. So he could become mon, go ahead and mon the din of bar metzra. Now, afilu konu miyad ishte shemachla b'schuzul lekech. There's a musik that a person should forfeit his rights as a bar metzra. That's what the Rambam seems to be saying. A person has a right to forfeit. We'll see in the next paragraph also. You could forfeit your rights of a bar metzra. There were konu miyadei that you're not going to exercise your din of bar metzra. So nevertheless, is any male, that's not going to help. Ela habal misalke, because lepel, since the baal, she's bershus baal, so she doesn't have really a right to forfeit this right of bar metzra without the permission of the husband. The husband could forfeit it. Masha'enkin, since the husband has the rights over her nechasim, in other words, first of all, the nechasim are bershusei, and also kol schusha tav he has. So therefore, the fact that she made a kinyan to forfeit her rights as a bar metzra is not meaningful, and therefore he could still go ahead and exercise the rights of a bar metzra. Now, omdo ha'isha midaita v'silkas alekech, lepel, the woman herself. Before we're saying the husband could go ahead and deal with the lekech and be masalik the lekech if he chooses to exercise the din of bar metzra. Now, what happens? She herself went ahead and she was masalik the lekech and exercised her din of bar metzra, or v'cheino eved she'yinesim v'nesim v'nichsi adenov. So Eved, which was dealing with his husband, which is Adon's property, and he went ahead and was masalik the lekech. So over here again, if the Baal feels that or the Adon feels that it's advantage for them to exercise this din of bar metzra, is mekayim al. So then they're mekayim that the isha was being masalik the lekech, and al derez the Eved was being masalik this lekech, exercising the din of bar metzra on behalf of the husband, on behalf of the Adon. However, if the husband wants leikayim, and therefore v'tazul lekech v'yazir adam, and the isha went ahead and took the money from the lekech. And notice, I'm sorry, she gave money to the lekech, and she says she wants to have the karka mele give the money to the lekech. She gave the money to the lekech to reimburse him for the sale. So the husband goes ahead and says no, says the money that she gave you, give back. And Mamela, and keep the karka. That's the husband has the right, even though it's her karka. It's her karka. It's nichsi malug. It's her karka. Nevertheless, lopel, since it's bershusei, so he has a right to go ahead and to be mavatal her dinim when she was standing up and exercising the din of bar metzra. So both ways, say he could exercise din bar metzra without her permission, and secondly, if she goes ahead and tries to exercise the din of bar metzra, he could go ahead and be mavatal it. But divinely we see that there's a musig of actually making a kinyan. There's someone that's a bar metzra, and be'emes he has a schus to be misalik the lekech. You can make a kinyan from him in order to be mevatel that schus. Now, if it's be'emes a schus, kilo amaisa kinyan, that he actually owns something in the other person's karka, so you make a kinyan, the kinyan is being mevatel that person's schus. Masha'enkin, if you're saying that it's be'emes, it's not a psamaisa, a schus. It's a din on the lekeach, that the lekeach has to go ahead and do a yosher vatev in order to give it to the bar metzra. And if the bar metzra says, I'm not going to do it, I'm making a ma'aser kinyan, l'chur, it's only a kinyan dvarim. So a kinyan dvarim, it's not like I'm giving away something I own. It's something I could mon that this person should do what's yosher vatev, and I'm not going to mon that's going to do yosher vatev, but it's not something I own. That person has to do something yosher vatev, and I could mon that he should do yosher vatev, and I'm being mavater on it. So the fact that there could be a mitzvah of a kinyan for the bar metzra to be mavater on his chus of bar metzra, that's l'chura a raya that he has actually a kinyan in the karka. That's, again, we mentioned before, the Rebbe talks about it barichas, the Rebbe talks about it like other things, like certain things of shchenos, in all kinds of other inyanim, not only in karka, whether or not that creates a kinyan, or it's not a kinyan, or it creates a new reality because of the shchenos. But I'll call upon him, l'chura, from this Rambam is mashma that the fact that there could be a kinyan in order to be mevater on this chus is a right that I taka have a chus. And taka the Mordechai argues with this Rambam. The others argue with this Rambam, and they kind of know that there's no mitzvah of a kinyan that the bar mitzvah should make a kinyan to mevater a chus. Such a kinyan we're going to together of a kinyan dvar.